Welcome, Star Wars fans, to the first ever Mondaylorian podcast. Whether you are new to the fandom or have McClunky tattooed on your inner thigh, we are so happy to have you here with us today. I am your host, J2D2, or Jesse Swift, and standing by we have Blue Leader Scott Fox.
Morning.
We may be late to reviewing the show, but personally I've been staying up until midnight every Thursday since season 1. So really enjoyed the show, been keeping up with it, but just have not had the chance to get together with anybody and share it. And I know Scott himself had a pretty mighty binge to get caught up on Mando, so that we can finally, after this week, start discussing the episodes as they drop. But before we do that, we have never really talked in depth about the show, and I want to spend today's episode discussing and recapping everything that has happened so far. And really quick, because I haven't gotten a lot of your thoughts on it, I would like to open it up discussion for season 1.
So I took a hiatus mid-season 1. I went through the first 5 episodes, and they were really good. The show was fantastic, but I believe I just reached the point of Star Wars fatigue.
It was a rough time,
and coming off the Rise of Skywalker and everything that happened with that, which I absolutely love that movie, but I just was a little spent. And then I heard so much good stuff about season 2 of Mando, the first couple episodes, that I decided to jump back on, recommit, finished it, and I tell you what, season 1 wrapped up incredibly well. It's you and I have talked about it quite a few times. It's the best thing that Star Wars Galaxy has going right now is Mandalorian. And
not only right now, I would argue since the 80s, in my humble opinion.
You have a very solid argument for that, and it's very good. The season was it was really good as far as the quality, the production value is off the charts. The character development's very good. We get to see him from basically as he's building up, and then season 2 just took off like a bullet.
What did we think about the story of season 1 with the first introduction of Baby Yoda, which we will get into the new official name now, but it was a little episodic, but I think the story was heavy in the first 3 episodes and heavy in the last 2 episodes with some kind of episodic elements in the middle.
It's standard if you break it down to a trilogy. Let's say break it into 3 sections. You got your setup, your first act, second act, and third act is essentially how the arc of the season went. Mm-hmm. And it certainly has that feel. And you could put it, if you were to break them into chunks, you could totally see those as a three movies or however you want to break it. But the story arc was very good. The middle of anything, and we'll get to it with season 2. The middle of anything always has that sense of this is filler to get me to where I need to go.
Sure.
But season 1, the finale of season 1 was absolutely incredible.
It was awesome.
It was really good.
And I wanted to ask you a question, and I'll really quickly go through the episodes to the best of my ability, because I want to ask maybe like your favorite episode of season 1 or favorite director or combo. So the first episode was Dave Filoni. And that's the one where we get introduced to Mithril, the fish character that gets caught for a bounty. The second episode was the Mudhorn episode, which I believe was Deborah Chow, and she'll come back later. 3 was Deborah Chow. 2 was Rick Famuyiwa, who is known for directing the movie Dope. And then episode 4 was Bryce Dallas Howard, daughter of Ron Howard, who directed Solo. That was the one with the village and the ATST. Episode 5 was our return to Tatooine, which is probably my least favorite episode personally, but that was also Dave Filoni. Just now kind of starting to get into live action. 6, the Bill Burr episode with Prison Break, was Rick Famuyiwa again. And then 7 was Deborah Chow, another one of the best episodes, setting up our season finale. And the season finale was directed by Taika Waititi on IG-11. Do you have any favorites or standouts in that group?
I love the Bill Burr episode. It's you think that he's killing off all of them at the end. It shows that he just locked them in. I love that helped build in the moral code for Mando. Mm-hmm. He only kills when absolutely necessary. He's essentially Batman.
Yeah, and,
Except for
and
that
outside of
Batman doesn't
bounties,
kill in quotations. Yeah, he
outside
only
of
kills if
bounties
it's
and
necessary.
self-defense, he doesn't have a lot of need to take somebody's life. So
Correct. He would rather, if he has to injure them to get them under control, then subdue them. But he wants to avoid the unnecessary loss of life. And seeing that character development in him, seeing the change that he goes through, and the growth, but it was. I really like that. Plus, I like Bill Burr, and little nod going forward for this for
right.
season two.
I was going to say,
Um,
apprehending those guys both for what you're talking about and for some of the resistance pilots that we see in season two, the way that episode played out plays dividends and actually kind of saves his life later, because he tried to help a resistance officer that was working there and also apprehended these criminals, and in turn was kind of saved by the resistance. Skipping ahead a little bit, but
Oh yeah, no, that really, the fact that his actions, and I love that John Favreau has and Dave Filoni are really overseeing all of this to make sure that the continuity is there, and so we get to see things from groundwork for season two was laid in season one.
mhm.
And unlike Ryan Johnson, they didn't drop a whole bunch of storylines, but we won't get off onto that tangent. The work was put in, the little Easter eggs are set in there, and if you're really paying close attention, you can find them all over the place.
And you don't even realize, like, there's early on in season two, we meet Dr. Mandible, this ant-like character, and the Frog Lady. And I was thinking, oh, Dr. Mandible is in this episode because it's directed by Peyton Reed, and so he's got an ant in it. But then you go back and watch the first Tatooine episode in season one, both those characters are in the background.
Yep.
And I was like, oh.
Yeah, like I said, the continuity is really good, and it takes somebody. That's one of the things I love about John Favreau. And John Favreau, having worked so closely with the Marvel universe, really does understand
World building.
You have to. There's so many pieces that go in if you're going to do it properly to maintain stuff. And I know, not to get too far ahead, there's some people who are concerned with some of the changes to certain characters down the road. But I think what John Favreau's done for some of those characters and the treatment they got is perfect. And we've talked about this. It's a lot of fan treatment. Season one and season two has even more than season one as far as fan treatment goes.
They cranked it up to an 11.
Yes. I do like that also in the finale, the reveal of Mando's face, even though no living being has seen him, the fact that the droid saves his life. Season one's away. If you've missed that at this point, the spoilers on you. But that little
we're
reveal,
having a Mandalorian discussion, like.
The fact that little nuggets slipped in there briefly just to show his face is great, because also that actor's doing a great job with the character, and I just, and we also see the growth of him as far as the protector, the caregiver, and almost the fatherly figure for Baby Yoda.
My last thing, before we wrap up season one, is I think I have a couple episodes I really enjoyed, but I just want to talk about the finale for a second, because Taika Waititi brought some of his very unique, very Taika energy to the finale without it being distracting. Like, so much of the episode is just like 85% cohesive to the rest of the story, but he opens it with a comedic bit between a couple scout troopers that is the hardest I laughed the entire season, but it doesn't detract. It still fits in with the Star Wars humor, like, Han Solo going, we're fine here. How are you? It all felt like that, and just making fun of their inability to shoot stationary objects. Never get tired of that joke, and they really do, beat the dead horse, but it's okay.
It's one of the best moments of that. That episode is fantastic across the board, and it's almost a full movie by itself because it's an hour-long episode.
Yeah,
and we're very close to it. But that opening setup is so spot on, and it's one of those things that's an inside joke that everyone pokes fun at. That to see it come to fruition, see it on screen, and then pandering or panning those characters in that way it was glorious.
And one of the troopers was Jason Sudeikis, which I thought was a great guest appearance.
Yes.
And yeah, the
I
action
also
was
love.
phenomenal. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love the arc of that episode by itself. You get to see the one. It's got the old West style shootout. You know, you think of the old saloon that's surrounded.
Mhm.
You know, come on out with your hands up, type of thing.
Bit more
In which
Giancarlo
the gunfighter
Esposito.
show.
Yeah.
But then you get to see the sacrifice, the redemption portion, the fact that they have to debate the morality of the droid killing
Mhm.
himself in
Mhm.
defense of everybody else, and the fact that the logic of the droid supersedes the logic of the human. Like, this is the only way I can override the protocol because there is no other way you'll get out alive.
This is the way.
It was great. Yeah,
Um,
this is the way. It was really well done.
And another little great moment of like Taika humor is we see the flame troopers come in and Baby Yoda stops the fire, you know, and then later it comes back up. Grief Karga, played by Carl Weathers, when they're under attack, he's like, do the magic hand thing. And Baby Yoda's just like, and then we got a great cliffhanger with the Darksaber and stuff, but just very well wrapped up.
The Darksaber was such a good teaser cliffhanger.
Oh, the amount of
then it makes
Google
you like,
searches after that season ended, you know, the internet just blew. Everyone's like,
I'm shocked that we didn't see more Darksabers in the grocery or in the like department stores.
I think it's still coming because we haven't gotten the finale of that. I think once it hits like.
Oh no. That I have a feeling. I really hope that even after season 2, and I know that they've already got credits for season 3, episode 1 and 2 are already credited for the show. Like, they've already started production on those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that character, while we may see some ups and downs between Mando and is it Grand Moff Gideon?
That's correct.
Or what is his last?
He's not Grand. He's just Moff Gideon.
No, that's Moff Gideon.
Mm-hmm.
Between he and, I would love to see that relationship continue, because one of the hazards of a lot of the Star Wars movies, especially the prequel trilogy, is the one and done villain. And I want to see a longer lasting, like, if you have a good rapport between the villain and the good guy,
mm-hmm.
and there's that back and forth, you almost build a stronger relationship between them. Because right now I feel like Moff Gideon doesn't really care about Mando. He just wants the baby.
He's just the one he has to keep following around.
Correct.
Before we fully wrap up season 1 discussion, so that we can just go full spoilers into season 2, I just want to say what I think the biggest point of Mandalorian that I appreciate that has been in both seasons. It has been the unifying synergy for the fans that we have not had even since Force Awakens. It's been divisive, or I should say since the original. Everyone loves the original trilogy. People debate the prequels and people debate the sequel trilogy, and it's just a very divided fan base, a lot of the times very toxic. But Mandalorian has overwhelmingly just been received very positively, and they are doing it without discrediting anybody and showing respect to everyone. They're like, the prequels happened, they count, we're going to reference them. The sequel trilogy happened, and we're going to make references to it. And of course, the original trilogy. So they're just doing this thing where and of course the animated stuff, because it's Dave Filoni, they're just bringing everything in together and saying, this is Star Wars, all of it, love it or hate it, it's all part of this universe. And I'm very grateful for Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni for giving us all a like central hub where we can all talk Star Wars, and it doesn't get as ugly as it has been.
Oh yeah, people, you have trolls. They're going to complain about stuff no matter what you do, because some people are only happy when they're angry. But as a whole, Mandalorian is fantastic, and the things that it's pulled in didn't do anything to discredit any of the storylines or any of the quality. It is what it is, and it's good. The quality is on the upper echelon where it should be. You know, if you think of Star Wars, you think of production value, you think of visually stunning, The show is beautiful. Like, and I know that sounds weird, but it really looks it is pleasing to the eye.
And they have so many. I mean, they use stagecraft technology, which we could talk about later. It's very impressive, where they just build a couple set pieces and then have like the moving, like it's like a green screen, but it's a little different in the background. But they do so much.
The mix of practical.
Yeah.
Yes, mix of practical and digital is it's what it should be. It should not be
It's where we
completely
started.
digital. Yeah, totally.
That's what the original trilogy was. It's when they could do practical. It was practical because they didn't have as many digital options back then.
True.
But they've been doing a great.
Yeah, well, they had to make digital options.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the great things about was ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, is their studio was designed and made to create visual effects that had never been seen before.
Right. I mean,
and that's what they were.
Debate the prequels all they want, but the Phantom Menace was revolutionary in visual effects at the time.
It made leaps and bounds for all movies.
Right. All right. Well, that wraps up just our season 1 recap a little bit, and I want to start moving in with a little bit deeper discussion in season 2, which kicks off with, again, a longer episode directed by Jon Favreau, who has been showrunning this whole Mandalorian project. And it's great to see a seasoned, I mean, there's a lot of seasoned directors involved in this, but it's great to see somebody with the prowess of Jon Favreau and the love and passion and care that he takes into his projects take on one of these episodes. And you could feel it. I love that it was longer. And then we get Timothy Olyphant showing up as a character from the recent canon novels, who just makes a brief appearance in the novels. And I love the attention to detail and where they're pulling these characters from. What did you think about the first episode, or as I call it, the Tremors episode?
Oh yeah. Well, one, there's never there's never an empty Sarlacc pit except for what ate the Sarlacc. Just so many good stuff. Timothy Olyphant is fantastic. Plays the role really well.
I want more.
I want to, playing the role of the marshal for that tiny little village. He does a great job. And the fact that he hijacks or he finds or trades for Boba Fett's armor in order to, and then uses that as a guise to protect the town by making people believe there's a Mandalorian in the village. And I was just looking at something on IMDb on season 2, 4 of the 6 episodes are rated over a 9.0. And one of them's an 8.5. That's not a 9. And the other one is episode 2, which you and I both agree is kind of it gets better the more you see it, but
there's no such thing as like a straight up bad Mandalorian episodes. There's just less good.
Well, it's a comparative game, especially because the Marshall episode 1 is so good, so clean. You find out so much stuff.
It's hard to follow.
The teaser at the end.
Yeah. Oh,
the teaser at the end of episode 1, when you get to see Tamar Morrison.
Tamar Morrison, yes.
Yeah, when you see him right at the very end, and you're like, "Wait a minute!" Like I literally walked towards my television, like okay, so he is alive. Yeah. He got out of the like all the canon stuff where he survives, that got carried forward, even though it was decanonized. Right. It got carried forward. Boba Fett's alive, and then we get to see, and that also is a nod going forward in the season. So,
and something I found
episode 1 is great.
It is. It's so good. It's still. I don't think it's my favorite episode anymore this season, but it was up there for a good while. And I didn't realize this, but it wasn't our first time seeing or hearing of a crate dragon, because I think it's New Hope, when C-3PO is walking through the desert sea or the Dune Sea, whatever they call it, of Tatooine, there is a large skeleton in the background, and it is the skeleton of a crate dragon.
Yep.
And so I thought that was good. And then we see, is it R5, the droid that we see when she first lands, that was in A New Hope?
Yep, the red one. Mm-hmm. Red and white. That's a great callback. The other thing is, we had touched on the quality. One of the fears for season 2 is that season 1 was so good and finished so well that it would not carry over. And they came out guns blazing. Episode 1, and to see Mando fly into the crate dragon and then launch himself out before he blows it up.
It was some Burt Gummer energy.
It was so good. Oh, and then
Um,
he, what's cool is he walks around the rest of that episode, and then even the very beginning of episode
actually
2,
just
and
covered.
they showed he still got the goo stuck all over his helmet.
I gotta tell you, I've watched most of these episodes. I've watched at least like 3 times, just because I watch them with different people. When both Mando and Cobb Vanth take off on their jetpacks, I'm just like goosebumps all the way up. I'm like, this is what does it for me, is just seeing them
Oh my
jetpack
gosh.
together.
The fact that the Marshal is flying, hold on a second. The fact that the Marshal is flying Anakin Skywalker's pod racing,
yeah.
one of the seats on the side,
Mhm.
another great, like, not only did he steal all kinds of stuff, but he
You're like, yeah,
stole
it's
the
Tatooine.
pod racer.
Yeah.
But the fact that he's got half of the pod racer, he's got one of the turbines with a seat attached to it, and then they're racing on the speeder versus the pod racer, which, by the way, the pod racer would smoke a speeder. Not even close.
The first episode was definitely a whole bunch of haha.
It's fan treatment.
Right.
They could have given him any bike, but to pull back that bike,
there's definitely a way to do it wrong. And I think their visit to Tatooine in the first season was a lot of like beating you over the head with member. And this season was just like flawless. Like nothing detracted from the story at all, enhanced it. And I love how much we got to get in with the Tusken Raiders. And I love the like Tusken sign language, and that Mando can like speak with the grunts and sign language. And we get to go into their world a little more, learn more about their culture, and that they're not just the mindless beasts that we see in New Hope. And they brought in that the Krayt Dragon sound, the like shrieking sound, is actually the sound that Obi-Wan made in New Hope, and they repurposed it for the dragon. So now we know that he's scaring the Tusken Raiders away in the original with the Krayt Dragon scream. And I was like, guys, just that is how you enrich and add depth to already great material.
It's deep catalog type stuff where you'd have to really know your Star Wars in order to get those little things.
Which I appreciate, because
I also loved.
Go ahead.
I love that they strap down the bantha right at the mouth. The guy yells and then goes running, and the Krayt Dragon runs right by the bantha and eats the guy. It's like here's the bait, run away, and it snacks on him instead.
I'm a pretty
but that was
Star Wars fan.
Season 1 was, or episode 1 was really good.
I miss a lot of things. I do all these recap things, and I'm happy to be educated on all the Easter eggs and stuff like that, because it's things that I don't catch. I'm not that prepared. All right, so we'll roll into, we got the Boba Fett teaser, and so I think a lot of us were like, "Ooh, Boba Fett's going to be the next episode." Maybe, because I think we've overall through the 2 seasons have had 2 teasers of him. So I think we had a lot of expectations as to where the next episode would go. And what ended up happening is he's still trying to find more Mandalorians, because the armorer in the first season said, this is your quest. You need to take the child and find its people, find the Jedi. In order to do that, he's like, well, I need to find Mandalorians, because Mandalorians are going to help me find the Jedi, and I can hop like covert to covert, go planet to planet, figure it out. Where do I find these Mandalorians? So he ends up picking up a traveler to get the frog lady to take her to her home planet, because she has to get her eggs fertilized. And she said, my husband knows where we can find some Mandalorians. So, of course, being the episodic form that Mandalorian is, it's not a straight A to B situation. He tries to be, and their Trask, I believe, is the name of the planet that they're trying to get to. But he gets pulled over by some space beat cops, being the rebel pilots. One is Dave Filoni, and the other one is Paul Soo-young Lee, I believe, who's from Kim's Convenience. And Scott, tell us a little bit of what happens with the Resistance pilots.
They're basically asking him questions about who he is and trying to find some of that stuff out. But that comes back later in the episode as well. But they are also come in escort mode and then immediately go into X-wing mode. And the second they do that, he realizes they're up for he realizes they're up for a fight, and he ducks onto a planet, has to crash his ship and ruin it in order to be able to get away.
And when he lands, we think maybe he's okay. And then it goes like falling through a cavern.
Yeah, it just goes from bad to worse. It's kind of a standard plot thing. You're like, oh man, they barely made it. Nope, it's worse. And then uh, Baby Yoda eating the eggs of the frog lady
The
as a
controversy of
snack.
the year.
Ooh, but he's got to eat,
Right.
you
And
know. And
he,
that's a throw. That's a throwback to on Dagobah when Yoda just eats a frog. By the way,
well, also
and
Baby
so
Yoda ate frogs twice in the first season, or he ate one and then
yeah,
he spat the other one out later.
it's normal. And so it's not. It's. I love that Mando's got to constantly be like, no, stop it. I said no, don't do it again. But then the callback to the fighter pilots at the end when everything's going absolutely as bad as it can go, and literally he's done everything he can. He shot as many as he can. And he's in the giant one's on top, and he thinks he's dead. Boom! There's the fighter pilots knocking everybody out and saving him. And then they ask him the questions about whether he had saved that Imperial uh, soldier
Or attempted to.
on the or attempted to, if he had
Yeah.
saved the life of him and done all the things that he was supposed to. And he said yes. And then, you know, they let him off of a pass because it's strange times. And this is a
Right.
guy he's a bounty hunter. He's doing bad things, but at the same time, he's also done some good.
And he apprehended
So
the criminals. They're like, you know, the three that they had
yep,
rounded up, he left them at the prison. And I want to
correct.
get
That
into,
little bit from season 1 saving his life in season 2.
I want to talk about the spider creatures for a second because they are pretty haunting. And this is as close to like kind of horror elements as we've seen, I think, in a lot of the Star Wars universe things. Very reminiscent of Alien, especially when little baby Yoda goes waddling over to the eggs, cracks one open, and pops a little baby spider, and then starts a series of events. You get a little bit of Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings vibes with just the massive spiders coming through and chasing them through. We see Frog Lady hopping around, which I thought was kind of cool, hopping through the little ice hallways. And yeah, it was, you know, it was an entertaining episode, but plot wise, we didn't feel like we experienced much. But we start seeing more of these Resistance pilots. So I think looking back on, we can see the purpose of this episode and why we went through it, and we get more with Frog Lady in the following episode. But is there any other lasting impacts you have with episode 2?
A tiny bit of character development for Mando, continuing to do the right things and live up to the code.
Right.
He has a moral code that he lives by.
That's a good
and
point.
This helps develop the moral code. He does his best to execute the job that he said he would do. If he says he's going to do something, he does it.
And we got a
He's a
really
man of
great
integrity.
return of that robot that was from episode 6 of the last season, where the Frog Lady uses his like vocal translator so she can talk to Mando.
Yes,
that was cool.
That was very good. Yeah, because he's just sitting there like, we're going to wait it out and see what happens.
Yeah.
Sorry, nope, not going to do anything. And
she calls him out.
like, hopefully we survive the night. And then she's like, no, like you said you would save me.
These eggs are the last of my line, and you know she keeps reemphasizing that they're so important. And meanwhile, as my girlfriend Lauren says, Baby Yoda's sitting there popping them like gushers, just like. And at the end, he just pulls one like out of his little robe. It's,
Yeah,
right,
he's still got an extra one, and there's a good chance he's the last of his line as well.
Baby Yoda. Feasibly, we've seen 3 total in all the Star Wars movies. In Yoda, Yaddle, and Grogu. When we'll talk about Grogu later. All right, episode 3. Episode 3. I haven't been doing the titles. First episode was the Marshal. Second episode was the Passenger,
Heiress.
And then third episode is the Heiress. Yes, which is of course referring to the Heiress of Mandalore, being Bo-Katan from the Clone Wars and Rebels series. For anyone that doesn't watch the animated stuff, I myself am catching up and getting educated on that. Bo-Katan was voiced by Katie Sackhoff in the animated show, and she is now being portrayed by Katie Sackhoff in live action. And we get to see her with some of her Mandalorian comrades. I guess we'll go to the beginning of the episode. They make it to Trask, barely. After being attacked by those giant spiders, the ship is limping along at best. They try to make a safe landing, get dropped off into sea, lifted up by a crane. The Razor Crest is on its last legs. And so Mando finds some Mon Calamari to work on his ship, and then he goes seeking Mandalorians.
The repair job they do to that ship by the end of the episode,
it's a travesty. It's rough.
He's lucky to be able to get off the ground. They tied it back together with fishing line.
Literally.
Like you might as well take a
Fishing
duct
line
tape to it.
and nets.
Yes.
Mando goes to kind of the equivalent of a Mon Calamari like space pub, where they have chowder that comes down out of a tube and just plops a little octopus into your bowl. It's just, and I love watching Baby Yoda try to eat it, and the thing comes on and hops on his face, and he just like pokes it with the knife. He's like, stop playing with your food. There's a lot of great moments in it. As I have started affectionately calling him the Dadalorian, the more the season goes on. And then he talks to a Quarren, is what they're called, the other species there, and ends up getting a ride on the ship. And these Quarren guys are not a good deal. They're bad folks, and they want the Beskar armor. They toss Baby Yoda to get devoured in his little space crib by this giant creature in the water. And then that's when we catching up now, the arrival of Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorians. And Mando is shocked when they all take off their helmets instantly. Tell us a little bit about that, Scott.
Yeah, so this is also where we start to find out more about Mandalorians and the fact that he's from a group that are essentially religious zealots. They are extremists, and they don't take this is the way, the code that he lives by. And he finds out that from Mandalore there are other types of Mandalorians who don't follow the same strict code. They still do all the things, and these guys kick butt. They're amazing. And Mando basically he is faced with this scenario where he has lived his whole life believing this set of Mandalorian rules as though that's all that Mandalorians have ever done or will ever do. And then it gets passed down, or he finds out that there are other ways. And that's a real hard thing for him to swallow. And then to have to lean on the support and the help of these people who don't follow the same rigid code, but are supposedly of the same line that he is.
And they tell him, we might
again, this does more character development.
Right. This was the most plotty episode that we had for the overarching story so far in this season. And then Bo-Katan tells him, well, we might be able to lead you to a Jedi, but we need your help to take out this like Imperial freighter. And we see a lot of that. It's you help me, I help you through a lot of the show, which is fine. It's definitely very formulaic, but you can see it coming.
It's totally, hey, I need your help with this. Sure, I can help you, but first I have a side quest. It's literally every RPG you've ever played.
It is, but it's all about the execution, right? And the execution of this episode, I thought, was fantastic. Watching them come in and just, as usual, stormtroopers are absolute fodder. But we do get a great moment where Mando's trying to break through the hallway, and they can't break through because there's like 10 troopers on the other side. And so we get to see how powerful the Beskar armor really is. And then we get some great moments where there's an Imperial officer and he thinks he's locked off the Mandalorians in a room, but really they're locked in the cargo control room. And so they just
he's on the wrong side.
Yep, he's on the wrong side, and he gets sucked out into oblivion.
Don't worry, we've got him locked into the cargo hold. Wait, what?
Really great comedic
The
moments.
other thing that they're Mando's impressed with how well these guys are just walking through stormtroopers. They're crushing it. And then they get pinned down, and Mando, like you said, has to show how tough he is. And he basically goes to the sacrificial lamb, runs out, taking shots like crazy to the point it drops him. And then he throws the thermal detonator into the hallway to get rid of the rest of them. It was a really good moment for him to show his toughness, also to show that he's on the level of the other Mandalorians, or maybe even better. And, he has to do some pretty cool stuff.
I want to make sure that I keep bringing up the directors, because I forgot with the last couple, because the last one was Peyton Reed, who people know from doing Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, as well as some comedies. This one was Bryce Dallas Howard, and what impressed me is this is one of my favorite episodes of this season. And she did the villagey swamp episode in the last season, which was one of my least favorite episodes. Not bad, but it was just, I didn't like it as much.
Well, sometimes it's what you're given to work with. Yeah,
absolutely.
And this one is definitely a thick, as far as plot development, you're getting character development, all kinds of stuff. And the episode leaves off with a teaser. Of course, they catch the ship, they do all these things, and then they plant the seed. And the same thing like they do with Boba Fett. They tease it, but then they're not going to come back to it for a couple episodes. And at the end of this one, they give you that you need to go to this planet and look for Jedi Ahsoka Tano and find her. And
Go to Corvus.
as soon as she drops the name, that's when I text you, "Holy crap!" I was like, "Okay, like we've been waiting for this. Now they've teased it." And I love what they did is they didn't deliver the next episode. They make you wait for it.
And
so
next,
it was a good episode.
So we'll move on to the next episode, which was directed by Carl Weathers, who plays Grief Karga in the first season and in this. And we get the return of Cara Dune, played by Gina Carano. And they go back to Navarro. And I would say almost half of, or maybe more than half, I guess the first episodes 1, 3, and 7 and 8 all take place on Navarro in the first season. So now we're going back to Navarro, which is a place we've gotten to know relatively well. It's changed a lot. They Cara Dune is now warden or marshal, and she's taking care of business there. Grief Karga is the magistrate, I believe, is what he refers to himself as. And then we get Mithral's back, and they have uncarbonated him, and he's working for Grief Karga, working off a debt of, what did he say originally, like 300 years or something like that. He just keeps
360 years or something like that.
He just keeps bumping
because by the end of the thing,
yeah.
He's going to take 100 years off, and by the time they're done, he's like, "I'll take an extra 30."
That's
like,
right.
We'll get you down fast. And he doesn't want to do it either way. He would rather work the 300 years.
Right.
To do the things they're asking him to do.
I really enjoyed that. And they said that essentially on this whole planet, there's one Imperial base left. And like, this is where all the troopers came. They were like in last season. So we need to get to the bottom of this. And we talked about how much plot was in the last season. I think this is, I don't know, I think 3, 4, and 5 and 6, they're all just very plot heavy, which kind of makes up for 2 being a little bit of a filler. So they go to this Imperial structure, Mithral, Cara Dune, Grief Karga, and they get in there, and we find out a lot about what the Camino scientists from the first season and the whole Imperial group wanted with Baby Yoda. Talk about some of the things we see in the space.
Yeah, they're looking, well, they think it's just an outpost, and they're just going to blow it up. And then they find out it's actually a research lab. And in it, we get a blurry image of a shape floating in water, reminiscent of Luke when he's floating in the regeneration chamber. There's this, the tank. And we see this thing that if you really get a good look of it, man, it's got some eerie similarities to Snoke. It's got the big scar on the top of the head, some of the other stuff, really long, lanky legs. It looks a lot like it. But then we find out via a holocron or a holograph transmission that they are looking for the blood to do the work, and that they're trying to use Baby Yoda as the donor for the blood in order to, because he's got a high M count, the midichlorian count, in order to feed whatever it is they're doing a restore. And so there's this idea that they've got to replenish whatever's in this tank.
Right. And
which is, it changes the dynamic. Now they're no longer, like, this also fills in Mando on why they want this kid so bad.
Right.
Because he's trying to keep him safe, but they just keep coming. And there's something important about him.
He left him at a school back on like the main village, so he's thinking, I gotta get back to him. But what else he finds out?
Oh yeah, he freaks out.
Is it's a transmission to Moff Gideon. He's like, oh, this is an old message. He's like, no, it's 3 days old. He goes, oh, we knew Moff Gideon was alive from the season finale, but Mando did not. He's like, I gotta get back to the kid. So we get
he thought the crash killed him.
We got a great opportunity to focus in on the side characters for about 10 minutes while Mando flies off and goes back to the village to get Baby Yoda. So then we get it's referenced a little earlier. Mithril has some of the best gags, I think, in this episode. First, when we see the Imperial transport, the first time that was ever seen was actually a toy that was never in the movies. Do you know anything about this? The trooper transport? Okay, it was one of the first toys that had no movie basis to it. They didn't sell it for very long, but now it is one of the most valuable like Star Wars toys that you can get your hands on.
That's why they said this will go for a lot of money on the black market.
On the black market. And so all the Star Wars fans are like, ha, ha, ha. So it's a subtle little joke. And then what are we always saying?
That makes total sense now.
What are we always saying about like Force Awakens and stuff like that? Why aren't there handrails on these things? You know, and so they have Mithril go out to the switch. He's like, there's no guardrails. I thought that was great. So we get to see them hop into the troop transport and try to flee. And then we get the best speeder bike action with troopers that we've ever seen. And they all like go over the hill chasing this transport. And we see a couple of them not even make it down the hill because troopers are inept, as we know. But the action in this scene, what Carl Weathers does with it, I think is absolutely incredible. We get some great moments.
Well, you got to remember, Carl Weathers has a good action background.
Right.
Via movies, both with all the Rocky movies that he did, as well as the Predator, the first Predator movie, he was heavily involved with, and so there's Carl Weathers knows how to do something like this. I love also they're never going to send TIE fighters out after a transport, and then boom, 5 of them launch out the top, of course, and they start trying to track them down. They're having to. Carl Weathers is on the back using the gun in order to try and defend them. And then when that wears out, we find that Mando's escape earlier on paid huge dividend.
Right. I think this was the episode when I realized how much I cared about the Razor Crest. When it comes flying back and just some great aerial combat, it's super entertaining. And he's doing spirals after the TIE fighters. And we see Baby Yoda, referencing back to earlier, I kind of forgot about it. He stole some macaroons from a kid at the school. Great little sassy Baby Yoda
then
moment.
After all the rolling and everything.
Yeah, he just and just like pukes a little blue spit down. And then Mando's in the middle of trying to reach back and rub the vomit off of Baby Yoda's little robe. And that's when I was like, he is dad. Mando is the dad.
The Dadalorian.
Yeah. And then I think they ask him to stick around afterwards, and he's like, I gotta go, I got things to take care of on the ship, I gotta get him back to the Jedi. And that episode, we learned a lot in that research lab, but also it was a dense episode of action, and one of my favorite episodes.
Well, and I knew they planted a little thing in the very beginning of when he drops off the ship and says, make it like new, and they do. But the one worker guy who's there kind of gives that second glance that immediately makes you go, this guy's bad. This guy's really bad. And then at the end, we find out that he's planted the tracking device on it. Right. Again, something that won't come to fruition in that episode, but will pay dividend down the road, is they basically line the ship with a tracking device that he doesn't know about.
And then we see what we come to find out are dark troopers on Moff Gideon's ship. That's at the very end. And there's a lot of snap moments in this episode as far as reveals go.
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
So we're coming on to the next episode, which the title of this one came out a lot earlier than they usually do. People found out really quick this episode was called The Jedi and that it was going to be directed by Dave Filoni. And we're like, it's Ahsoka. Like, we knew that this was going to be Ahsoka. And
they had already said that you had to find Ahsoka Tano, and like they hinted to it.
How many filler
if they had brought a different
have?
Jedi after saying, yeah, exactly,
and then played brilliantly by Rosario Dawson.
Oh my gosh! Which is fan treatment. She was listed as being one of the top fan picks
3 years ago,
5 years ago. Yeah. People wanted her to play the live action version, and I love that they start the episode with her.
Yes,
not discovered. It's like this is the episode is about her,
right? And
how Mando just has to engage with her in order to find out the next leg of his mission. But she's fantastic in this.
Oh, just such a kick-ass scene of her like slicing trees in half and then using the force like throw tree parts of the they weren't troopers, they were just some I'd say like Imperial remnants,
soldiers.
Soldiers.
Yeah.
Because we know that their leader was an Imperial supporter, so I don't know what else to refer to him as. And she is.
You know what's funny is the armor and everything they're wearing. I went back and rewatched Solo, and it totally echoed with the kind of the mask that Solo wears in the movie Solo when he pulls it off when he's an Imperial soldier for that
Right.
short stint. The stuff they're wearing on that planet looks very similar to what Solo was wearing when he was a soldier in the army, or I guess the Imperial Navy back then.
And then maybe help me.
But they had the different types of masks and stuff.
Help me with the actor. Is it Michael Biehn?
Michael Biehn played the kind of the marshal for them. Yes.
Yeah. That was
such a good actor. So good.
Right. It was awesome to see him in there. And then we get to see the magistrate and Ahsoka are definitely at odds. And then we catch up on, I believe, is this the episode that starts off with Baby Yoda doing the electrical work, or was that the last episode? I'm not entirely sure.
That's the final episode. That's tragedy. That's the next one. That's after this.
No, when he was like in the little like electrical hallway thing, and he said, "Okay, it was worth a shot," and they're playing in the on electric, and it was very like Baby Groot-esque.
No, I think you're right. I think that's the episode after he gets his ship and he's trying to get back to. That's the beginning of the siege. So when they're just trying to get the ship to work to be able to get where he's going.
Okay. Well, they land on this planet Corvus, I believe, and they go to this village that is definitely worse for wear. It's being ran by this Imperial supporter, and she says, while you're here, I can give you this Beskar spear here, pure Beskar, to go and take care of this Jedi for me because she's plaguing me. And he's like, oh yeah, I will. The words he uses is, I will find her. He's very careful with the words that he chooses. And it's very brief, but he goes into the woods with Baby Yoda, sets him down, and finds her, and they fight. And the fight lasts about, 12 seconds, but the amounts of blood, it's so well choreographed where he gets her wrapped up in one of his cables. She jumps over her branches and tries to hang him up by his own strings. He cuts it, shoots a flamethrower at her. It's awesome. And then he's like, Ahsoka Tano, I need to talk to you. And she's like, well, I hope it's about him. And then we get just a beautiful moment of no words being spoken, but Ahsoka and I'm going to say Baby Yoda for the last time, sitting on a couple logs, just mentally talking to each other. And she's getting caught up on his whole life story, or at least everything that he remembers. And Din Djarin.
The reveal of his name being Grogu was one of those things I had to reverse 10 seconds. Listen, what did they call him? Grogu? That's the name they picked?
I always have subtitles.
It's growing on me. It's growing on me. It's still...
Well, it's like a year and a half of calling him Baby Yoda,
Yeah, exactly. That's like finding out that Darth Vader's actual name is Anakin. Okay, he's Darth Vader.
Right. It takes a while.
I've already called him this for too long to go back. And he still looks like a Baby Yoda.
Well,
so Mando still just calls him the kid. Hey, kid.
My point to I made with people when they're like, oh, I don't want to use Grogu, I just want to keep calling him Baby Yoda. I'm like, go ahead, because how many people call Mando Din Djarin?
Yes.
Nobody says his name. He's just Mando. Yep. So if you want to keep calling him Baby Yoda, go for it. I'm slowly adjusting to using Grogu now, moving forward.
Yeah, I think as they use it moving forward, they had to do something. They had to give him a name.
Right.
It was a matter of time.
Well, I think it's funny now seeing all the marketing coming out, and it's like the child. And in my head, I'm like, well, now he has a name.
I've even seen stuff in the store that also says Baby Yoda. So but to move forward, one of the cool things about this episode is then you get to see the Force connection between Ahsoka and Grogu and how that kind of develops a little bit. And she talks to him, but she can sense the fear or the attachment in him,
right? And
hints to Anakin and seeing what the attachment can do, even to the most trained, to a Jedi Master, and what it can do to people.
The best of us.
Yes, and there's some nods in there that are really good. They're very powerful. One of the things I love the most is that she can't get Grogu to use the Force with her. He has to give the ball to Mando, and essentially it's Mando playing catch with his son.
And it's just the most precious, wholesome moment.
When he does it, Mando's so proud. He's like, yes, good job. And he's pumped. And then we get to see that even in the next episode when he's sitting there and he's doing it back
I
and
almost
forth.
had like a happy tear watching him. He's
so
like, did you
excited.
see that? Did you see that? I knew he could do it. And I was like, oh, you are the dad. It's wonderful.
Yep. There's so much goodness in there intermixed. I don't know if my video's just completely dropped out, but there we go. Yeah, sorry. Those moments when they're playing the catch is so powerful because again, we're getting character development. We're also getting backstory. We're getting filler for all these other areas of Grogu's life, the Jedi, what's going on, the fact that she's in hiding, but not in super hiding. Like people know where she is, but
she's not pulling a Yoda. She's still fighting the good fight.
Correct, and she's fighting against those who are oppressors.
Which ironically, she's not even a Jedi anymore. She's just doing it out of, moral obligation.
White lightsabers, pretty sweet.
Pretty cool. First time we've seen them in live action.
Yep, it was really good, and it set the stage for what happens next really well.
I just really quickly want to say when they decide to team up and take this village back, and then I love Mando's line where he's like a Mandalorian and a Jedi. They'll never see it coming. And they go, and we get a great dichotomy of a little Western standoff and a little Ronin samurai stuff. So we get a little bit of like Japanese and Western culture coming together. Oh, yeah. And I thought the finale was great. And we find out, and I guess we got to see it a little earlier, that Beskar holds up to lightsabers, that's a big deal. Yes. We've seen it cut through every other kind of metal without any problem. But it makes sense because they have talked about in the show that a long time ago, Mandalorians and Jedis were just sworn enemies. So it makes sense that their armor is specifically designed to combat the weapon of the Jedi.
Yep.
And so, that goes about as well as it could. And then we get another name drop. This has been the season of name drops, and that is Grand Admiral Thrawn. Scott, do you know anything about Grand Admiral Thrawn?
It's harkening to Clone Wars and Rebels. It's a throwback to those, and there's a lot that goes in with Thrawn in the story.
6 or 7 books now, I think. There's 3 that have been decanonized, and then now there's the new Thrawn trilogy that fits into canon. And the character is voiced in the animated show by Lars Mikkelsen, Mad Mikkelsen's brother. That's a fun fact, but this has big implications because the last time canonically that we saw Ahsoka, her and Sabine Wren in Rebels are searching for Thrawn and Ezra because they disappeared out into the Outer Rim together, and that was the last we saw of those 2 characters. So there is some credence for maybe them bringing in Ezra Bridger from the animated stuff. She says, I will not train Grogu because his attachment to you is too strong, and she's concerned about that. So she says he needs to go forth and seek his own path. So he'll go to the Seeing Stone on, I forgot the name of the planet, and call out to the Force and see if any other Jedis hear him, which will lead us to our next episode, which is called...
So real quick.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Episode 13, or sorry, chapter 13, or episode 5 of season 2 is rated as a 9.6. Episode 14 is rated as a 9.5. And that's called The Tragedy. And
directed by Robert Rodriguez.
As soon as I saw that, you can see the action sequences in here. They have the subtle amount of slow motion, very physical action. It's not shooting. The best part of this is when you see Mando land, he puts Grogu on the Seeing Stone. Grogu starts doing his thing. He starts connecting with the Force, right? And it's to the point Mando can't do anything to reach him, can't do anything at all. And then we see the ship flying. The second you see Boba Fett's ship circling in, you're like, oh, here we go. Like, this is it.
That is like kind of the test on your Star Wars fandom level. Because I saw it and I was like, Slave One. That's Slave One.
Yep.
That's Boba.
When it circles in and drops, and then they start to ambush, and they don't ambush. He comes face to face with Boba Fett, and they start talking about the armor. and then he finds out that the callback to the first season, the bounty hunter is actually now a slave to Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Finnick, yeah, is basically got him on a sniper rifle, and he locks on his little missiles like, I'll take you both out right now. That showdown is great.
Did you catch the reference to Attack of the Clones, where he says, "I'm just a simple man trying to make my way through the galaxy," which is exactly what Jango Tamora Morrison said to Obi-Wan when he first confronted him.
Yep.
It was
yes.
It was pretty great, and I like when he first says, he's like, "I want that armor." He's like, "Oh, you have to peel it off my dead corpse." It's like, not that armor. Like, I want my armor.
I knew he was asking about his own armor.
Yeah.
It was so good. And then that becomes part of the whole battle for them. Oof. Is to, one, defend Baby Yoda. Boba Fett is an absolute savage
beast
when he's
mode.
Taking people out.
Yeah.
Just mowing them down, and the way he uses that Maori style club.
Yes.
To
he's just
annihilate
smashing
people.
Stormtroopers like faces.
Ripping through Stormtroopers' helmets, like the helmet's like literally ripped right through the middle, like smashed in.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got the spike to impale people on the other side, and one of the guys he stabs straight through the chest with that, and then throws him at another Stormtrooper.
He grabs one guy by the underside of the helmet and just flips him over.
Yes. One of the things I love about that is as the more Stormtroopers keep coming and the battle gets crazy, and again, Mando runs back to take care of Baby Yoda or Grogu, and he can't reach into the Force. The Force is stopping him, so he has to go back to the battle and help. And the other thing is he left his jetpack. He left his jetpack, but then he gets down there, gets into the fight, starts doing awesome things. But Boba Fett makes this perfect moment where he looks over and he sees the Mando's ship, and
the Razor Crest.
What? Thank you, Razor Crest. He sees the Razor Crest and he looks over and he's like, and he just disappears. And you're like, okay, is he getting the ship? What's he gonna do? When he flies in as Boba Fett,
I think first we see like a thermal detonator come by and like blow up some of the troopers, yes. And then you just hear
it rolls into the group. But then you see him land in, and he just starts going. Like, now that he's wearing the armor,
can we talk about that imposing shot of him just standing over the trooper? And you're like, oh, you guys are screwed.
It's an upward angle, so it makes him look bigger than life. The way they shot it was glorious. It was perfect for cinematic effect. He seemed like the return. Every other place they saw him, you saw him flat leveled or looking down at him as angle wise. Other than when he was doing the fight sequences, then you'd always get a good upward angle of him. But when he landed with the suit, he looked bigger than life. And when he started just mowing them down with that and taking people out, it also it made him seem like he was trying to be stealthy without the armor. Once he had the armor, he's like, bring it. I'm going to walk right down the middle of this ravine, and I'm just going to take you all out.
And the troops quickly realize that they're outclassed, so they try to hop into their transports and take off. And with one fair swoop, he just kind of, bends over, shoots that rocket up, knocks one into the other, and they both go down. And Mando's like, "Oh, it's a nice shot. I was aiming for the other one."
Yep. So good. So good.
And then we think, well, that's the battle. And then we see a red beam of light come flying through from up in the sky, and we go, oh crap. And the Razor Crest's final moments.
Oh my gosh, it was so deflating. And then he's looking through and he finds two artifacts. He finds the knob. He saves that because that's Baby Yoda's toy.
After Grogu.
After the battle.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, because we
after
didn't talk
Grogu
about
is kidnapped by the
Dark Troopers.
What are they? The Dark Troopers. They come and they hijack Baby Yoda. And again, he didn't have his jetpack, so he couldn't get there fast enough.
Right. And then Boba Fett tries to do the honorable thing, hops in Slave One and tries to fly after the troopers. And he gets up to like the Gideon Star Destroyer. He's like, "Oh, they're back." Like, so I heard somebody. Empire. They're like, "Oh, were the stormtroopers not enough of a hit?" And I was like, the remnants of the Empire never went away. Like, there's troopers just scattered about. I think when he saw like an actual Star Destroyer, he's like, "Oh, the Empire's really, really back."
Yeah, that was bad news.
And so he had to turn away and go back to Mando, and that's when Mando finds the spear in the ball, and he's having a bad day.
Yeah, the spear, that was the biggie other one. Like, now he has the Beskar spear, he has the suit, he is loaded up and ready for battle. But then because the promise from Boba Fett was that he would stick with him until they guaranteed the safety of the child. Well, they've already done what they said, and he's like, no, we haven't guaranteed the safety of the child, so we are indebted to you until we do. So now you've got the team up for the remainder of Mando, Boba Fett, and Finnick as this trio that's going to go to battle.
And really quickly, before we go up to some of the events of Moff Gideon's ship, I want to talk about a little bit of what we find out about the Fett line. And there's been a debate for a while about whether Boba Fett or Jango Fett were Mandalorian. And by creed, in the same way that Din is Mandalorian, Jango Fett was. He was a foundling, and we find that out, and that is now officially canon that Jango was a foundling of the Mandalorians. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Boba is technically a Mandalorian. He carries his armor and the legacy of his father, but I don't know how much interaction he's actually had with Mandalorians. But
he was trained by his father,
right?
You know,
well,
but his dad also got his head cut off by Mace Windu when he was 10 years old.
Not a big fan of the Jedi.
Not at all.
So I mean, I don't know if Boba Fett showed up, if the Mandalorians would be like, "Hey, what's up, brother?" Or like So I don't know if he's actually accepted into the creed of the Mandalorians. But anyways, we find out some really great stuff about both Boba and Jango. And then we go up to Moff Gideon's ship where Grogu is being held captive. And I think we get a pretty great scene.
Oh, the cliffhanger there where Baby Yoda is angry and he's slamming around the stormtroopers because
like ragdolls.
He's been taken away from. Yeah. Well, and he's like holding them in place and then like throws them to the outer wall.
He's like choking both of them simultaneously and then like smashes them together.
Well, Moff Gideon knows this was going to tire him out. So he waits. He goes, just wait. Lets him beat the crap out of the two stormtroopers, knowing it's going to sap all of his energy. And then he lays down, has to fall asleep. But before he does that, he reveals the dark saber to him and says, oh, you remember this.
Right.
And then, or something along those lines, but then
Something
pulls it
from your
back and he's like,
past.
oh, no. Yeah, something from your past. And then he draws it back and he's like, no, you don't get it. No touching. Not yet. And then they cuff him and he's left there in the room.
The little baby cuffs.
The tiny cuffs.
That's when they're monsters, when they have baby cuffs on hands. It's like, come on, guys.
You never know. They might run into villains on weird planets who are really small. But they definitely, it's a little intimidating. And one of the things I love the best right there, that's the teaser hang up at the end of the Moff Gideon ship. But then they come back and we see that Mando comes to back to the planet where what's her name?
Cara Dune.
Why am I going? Thank you. Yeah, Cara Dune, where
Navarro.
Navarro, where Cara Dune is sitting there as the marshal. She now is also a rebel. She's part of the rebellion,
joined the resistance,
right?
Again.
Yeah, so she can't do illegal stuff anymore. But basically, he says, "I need your help getting this guy," and she says, "I can't do that." Well, he's like, "Well, tell me where he is," and she gives him the information of where. Bill Burr's character is hidden in prison, and basically the next step is my question is, will that be the next episode? I assume it has to, because season 2 is running. It's got 2 episodes left.
Yeah.
So I assume next episode we will see, and I know this goes into our predictions for next one, but I assume we'll see Mando, Boba Fett, and Finnick.
Mayfield is Bill Burr's name.
Breaking
just
out.
Came to me.
Mayfield.
Yes.
Mayfield, they're going to have to break him out of prison in order to get him to be able to track, because the whole thing is, can you track an Imperial star cruiser?
Because he says he used to be an Imperial sharpshooter, which calls back to like a great line in last season where he's like, "Well, I used to be a trooper," and Mando's like, "Well, that's not saying much." He's like, "I wasn't a stormtrooper."
I was a sharpshooter. I wasn't one of the stormtroopers, which also plays in right well with the stormtroopers sitting on the bikes or on the speeders not being able to shoot anything.
So
I think that has to be the next episode.
Yeah. So we've caught up now, episodes 1 through 6. So now next week we'll be reviewing episode 7. Looking forward to it. There's I've been having fun speculating, but there's so many different things that could happen this season. Like, what Jedi did Grogu reach out to? Are we seeing Luke? Are we seeing Ezra? There's people that are predicting like there's a way to tie in Mace Windu. I don't know about that, but somebody brought up recently, what about Leia? Because she's very force sensitive. She sensed Luke across the galaxy. She's currently getting Jedi training at this time period. I thought that was interesting.
That's an idea, but
and then
I think that will be the hang up at the end of season 2. That's
I agree.
episode 8. That will be the teaser to lead for season 3.
And then do we get Moff Gideon fighting Mando with the Beskar spear versus the Darksaber? Does Bo-Katan come back because she's got some real beef with Gideon? She wants the Darksaber so that she can go back to Mandalore and rule it. There's just a lot of things to be tied up. And
yeah, but again, I don't want to see Moff Gideon gone already.
Right, and I don't know if we need Moff Gideon to continue into season 3, or if the hint at Grand Admiral Thrawn, is that going to be a new villain for Mando, or is that going to be in the Ahsoka Tano series that we're likely to get? There's
so many bits and pieces, man.
I'm so excited. I love this show so much. I've been so thank you so much for doing the recap with me and being part of the first Mondaylorian podcast. So I'm looking forward
to next Saturday to busting this next thing down.
Yeah, we're going to be releasing these videos on Mondays, or at least the next
Monday.
Two Mondays, I guess, and then we'll be wrapped up on this season. But thank you for joining us, guys. Had an awesome time, and let us know in the comments what you guys thought of the episode. What's your favorite episodes? Who's been your favorite director, favorite character? What do you hope to see? What are your theories? We want to hear all that good stuff. So Scott, once again, thank you so much for joining me. And everyone back home, keep it real. May the force be with you. And see you next time.